All right, thank you everyone for attention. So I would like to introduce Nicole, our HR specialist. Today we're talking about the topic is on performance management. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Nicole.
Can everyone hear down the back? Yeah? Okay, excellent. Well, thank you. I am Nicole Quince. I'm the Managing Director of Everything HR. So we provide HR consulting for different industries, different sizes of industries. We do a lot of work in the healthcare sector, and we do a lot of work with performance management. So both helping clients with setting up good performance management systems and also help when things aren't going so well. So that's who I am. So I'm going to start to talk about the performance management, the good foundations for performance management. So good foundations are when, sorry, got to keep up. So with setting good foundations for performance management, the first step is to have a really good in-depth position description. So the position description or the job specification, whatever you like to call it, will set out the responsibilities and the knowledge, skills and attributes required to do the role. So it's very clear what I am signing up to come and do. The next point is to have KPIs or key performance indicators. So different organisations have different terms for KPIs or goals or objectives, but having these sets the expectations that you have of your employees. The other point to note with having KPIs is that they should ideally be SMART KPIs. So SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant and time-bound. So try and set SMART objectives or SMART KPIs wherever you can. The other point is to have development goals. So if someone is new to a role or they're struggling in a certain area, set them some development goals. So for example, you might have a finance person who has to do a report each month and they're falling short in their Excel. So you might want to put them on an Excel course. The other point is to review performance regularly. So don't wait until a performance review time. Have regular conversations with people about how they're going. So I personally meet with my team members every week. It's a 15-minute conversation. It doesn't have to be long or onerous. It's just checking in with them, how are they going, and what support do they need from me to be able to, again, meet those role expectations or the goals that I set them. So have those discussions regularly. So what I'm going to do now, because having SMART objectives or SMART goals is really important, and I'm going to talk about some specific cases and you'll see why it's important in a few slides' time. If you could just go one at a time. Sorry, go back. Go back. Yeah, thank you. So what I want to do now, can you actually see that? No, that's okay. It's really hard to read. That's okay. So I'm going to, actually, I don't have it on my slide, so I'm just going to have to read them out. So the first goal or objective is to improve communication skills, the tone used and what's said, and the measure for this is 0 complaints from clients and other staff. Does that meet the definition of a SMART goal or objective? Who thinks yes? So 0 complaints from clients and other staff. One person. Earl. Beg your pardon? Is it okay to strive for that? Yes. So that is a SMART objective or goal. There's a measure. It's very clear on what needs to be achieved. If you can just go to the next one. So the next one is to collate monthly activity report, and the measures are submit each month with minimal mistakes. Is that a SMART goal or objective? Who thinks, yeah, oh, you 50-50? Exactly. It's too vague. It's not specific. My definition of minimal might be very different to your definition of minimal. So this is not a SMART goal or objective. Next one. So the next one is to order stationery as required and within budget. The measures are ensure stationery orders are within budget, ensure stationery is maintained at an adequate level for the office as determined by the site manager. Is that a SMART goal or objective? Yes, well done, you're getting it. Okay, last one.
But they don't have control over how much stationery is used.
Who doesn't?
The person who's ordering it.
What do you mean?
Well, if there's a huge demand on stationery and the budget wasn't set right, then it's an impossible.
Well, then they don't approve it. They don't buy it. If
To review your budget then.
correct. So the last one is to deliver positive experience to clients. So this one's probably all relevant to some of you. So the measure is clients are satisfied with the customer service. Is that a SMART goal or objective? No.
Depends how you do it.
Is it clear? Do you know what satisfaction is?
Yeah, right now it's not.
Exactly. So it's not a SMART. It doesn't meet that definition of a SMART objective or goal. It's too vague. So again, what I deem to be satisfactory might be very different to what my manager deems to be satisfactory. You need to get more specific. So again, why this is important is we're going to cover some case studies, and you will see in those case studies why this is important to get right. So again, part of the foundation for performance management is giving feedback. And I know this is something that a lot of managers shy away from, especially having those difficult conversations. But again, it's important to give feedback because people don't know what they don't know. So the first is to make sure the feedback is timely. So a lot of managers sometimes wait until a performance review time to give feedback. So for something that happened 8 months ago, they're not going to remember. So it's important to give feedback in a timely manner in the moment or just soon after what's ever happened has happened. The next thing is to focus on behaviour and not personality. So what this means is, for example, giving someone feedback, oh, you were really rude and disrespectful in that meeting that we just had. That's not going to be helpful. What did I do wrong? Why was that an issue? So rather focus on the behaviour. So reframe that message to, in that meeting we just had, you kept talking over the top of Susie and you kept interrupting her, so Susie didn't get a chance to speak. So in the next meeting, I want you to let her finish speaking before you interject. Do you see the difference there? So they come out knowing very clearly what's expected of them. So there's lots of feedback. Is this really hard to read? Can you read any of this? No, that's okay. So it's okay. You'll get the slides afterwards, according to Howard. So you'll be able to read this, and I'm just talking to what's up on the screen. So there's lots of feedback models out there. The one that I particularly like to use is called AID. Stands for Action, Impact, and Do Differently. So that's one of the feedback models to help structure those conversations and to make it easier. So in that example I just gave, oh, is that better? There we go. So AID, with that example I just cited, the action would be that this employee kept talking over someone. The impact was that that other employee, Susie, didn't have a chance to be heard. And the do differently was next meeting, I want you to let Susie finish speaking before you interject. So that's just one feedback model to help you structure those conversations, because I know, again, people often shy away from having those very difficult conversations, especially when it's constructive feedback that you're giving. So, addressing performance and conduct issues. So even if we have that really good foundation in place, there are going to be occasions where someone still continues to underperform, or there's conduct issues. So these things happen. So the first thing I want to stress is for the managers in the room, make sure you document. Make sure you document everything. Like have those references to dates, times, if anyone was there, what happened, if there is performance issues going on or conduct issues. So there is a difference between performance issues and conduct issues. Can anyone give me an example of what a performance issue might be?
Not meeting KPIs?
Yeah, not meeting KPIs. Perfect. What about a conduct issue?
The way they behave themselves.
Yeah, the way they behave themselves. So bullying. Bullying is a very good example of a conduct issue. And the reason why it's important to differentiate these is there's different approaches to managing each one. So for performance, we might have like a number of conversations, informal conversations, and giving them feedback on where they're falling short in terms of their performance. Whereas conduct, you might need to have an investigation, depending on the seriousness, if it's been a formal complaint. You need to make sure that you've got the evidence to back up why there has been a conduct issue. So both need to have a very fair and reasonable process when going through that formal process. In terms of reducing risk, and when I say risk, that often is unfair dismissal claims or adverse action claims. What it's important to note for both performance and conduct issues is to have procedural fairness. So what this means is that in a formal process, you will firstly allow the person to give them a written. Sorry, my microphone's just died. Hello. Hello. Okay. Oh yeah. So the first thing. Oh no, start again. Can everyone hear my voice? Yes. So the first one is to give them a written letter outlining what the concerns are, with evidence and examples to back up why they are concerns. So then you're going to allow them to be able to respond to those evidence, those examples or those concerns. So usually rule of thumb is around 2 business days after you've presented them that letter outlining the concerns. Thank you. Hello? So 2 business days after you've presented them with that letter, allow them to respond and really listen to what they have to say about those concerns before you determine an outcome. If the outcome could be dismissal, it's important to put that in the original letter, that dismissal could be an outcome. And then again, if dismissal is an outcome, allow them a final opportunity to say why they shouldn't be terminated. So that's going to help reduce the risk of, again, a successful unfair dismissal claim or adverse action claim that an employee makes. There's no one-size-fits-all as well with performance management. So you need to take into consideration the employee's circumstances, the facts of the case. Is it fair and unreasonable? Is it unfair or unreasonable to terminate them? Because that's what Fair Work's going to look at. So an example of what Fair Work might deem an unfair termination would be a long-term employee who's had no performance issues, who turns up late for work one day or one time and is dismissed. That would be viewed very harshly by the courts. So what I'd like to do now is to take you through some Fair Work case studies. So all of these case studies are in the public record. I'm not giving away any secrets or anything in terms of their names. So the first one it's a case called Yen Yap versus Club Assist. So Yen Yap worked for this company and they supplied NRMA with workers. So Yen Yap was given some KPIs that he needed to achieve. The 3 KPIs that they said, that his employer said he wasn't meeting, was he didn't make enough battery sales. So one of the KPIs that he needed to sell batteries to over 50% of the clients he met with. The second KPI they said he wasn't performing in was he was spending too much time on jobs. And the third was that he was replacing too many batteries under warranty. So they terminated him. So they gave him a letter, they said, you're not meeting these KPIs and goodbye. So Yen Yap put in an unfair dismissal claim, and in this instance, the Commissioner found that those KPIs, there wasn't sufficient correlation between those KPIs and him underperforming. So for example, spending too long on a job. Why is that not performing? They weren't able to explain that. So the KPIs were not smart. They weren't specific, measurable or achievable. The other thing that the Fair Work found was that there was a lack of procedural fairness. So one, they didn't have any evidence to support why those KPIs being met amounted to poor performance. They didn't give him the chance to respond. And there was no evidence to support it. The KPIs weren't even explained why they were so important. So in that instance, he was reinstated, Yen Yap was reinstated, and he was paid back 9 months' worth of lost wages. So again, that's why, if I link it back to why it's important to have those SMART objectives, this is a case that demonstrates that. It's important to get them right. So ensure KPIs and objectives are clear, measurable, and they're explained and they're linked to actual performance and why achieving them is going to amount to performance. So the next case is that of Loretta Quinn. Sorry. So Loretta Quinn versus Cabrini Health. So Loretta Quinn was a dementia care nurse, and she had been working for just over 6 months, so she'd just finished probation, and her employer raised a number of concerns about her performance. So they asked her to come to a meeting, and in that meeting they gave her a letter that essentially stated, if you don't perform the role requirements, you may be dismissed. That's essentially what the letter said. And they said, we're going to put you on a performance improvement plan. And the performance improvement plan was very clear on the areas that she needed to improve in and the support that they were going to give in order for her to help meet those expectations. So in that meeting, Loretta came in. She said, I'm not standing for this, ripped up the letter and stormed out and said, I'm resigning. So then the following day, someone from the HR team contacted her. They said, I know the meeting got very heated yesterday. Did you still wish to resign? And she said, yes, I definitely am resigning. She then went to Fair Work and put in an adverse action claim for constructive dismissals. So what she's saying there is, I was forced to resign, and she said she was forced to resign because they put a performance improvement plan to her. And she said that they only did that because she had put in a complaint or raised concerns about lack of training and bullying. And so in this instance, Fair Work actually found in favour of the employer. And so what the employee did right in this instance, firstly, if someone resigns in the heat of the moment, don't accept it straight away. Wait 24 hours and then check in. Did you still wish to resign? Wait till they've calmed down and then check in again. So they did that right, they checked in. And secondly, the wording in that letter and the wording in the performance improvement plan was very clear. It was supportive, it showed what was expected of her, and they said that that was all above board. And so it was dismissed, the case was dismissed. The next case involved a restaurant floor manager who's working at a Japanese restaurant in Brisbane. So his name is Guna Wardina, and he was issued a number of letters relating to concerns about his performance, and then a final letter saying that they were terminating him because of those performance concerns, because he hadn't improved. And there were 6 concerns cited, and 2 of them included that the guests had complained about delays in service, and as he was the manager, it was his problem, and that he was failing to resolve problems, and he was relying on others to resolve problems that he should have been able to do in his own role. So that was kind of the gist of the letter, and there was sort of 4 other concerns outlined. So he raised an unfair dismissal claim, and what Fair Work held was in his favour, and they said because there was no prior warnings, dismissal was harsh. There wasn't enough basis for him to be dismissed on that one letter, and the concerns raised were not clear enough. There was not enough evidence to back up, again, what was it, when did those customers complain about delays in service? What exactly had happened? So he wasn't allowed an opportunity to respond. So the lack of procedural fairness and the performance concerns not being backed by the examples or the evidence were what amounted to the claim being successful for the employee, and so he was also reinstated and he was paid lost wages. So the final case is that of a mining company employee, Mr. Crook, unfortunate name. He worked for a mining company. There was a female employee or a couple of female employees who were travelling on the mining bus back at the end of the day after the shift had finished. And this female employee made a complaint, and she only made the complaint a couple of, I think it was weeks after this incident happened, where she said that this employee, Mr. Crook, and a number of other male employees were showing pornographic material and having conversations of a very sexualised nature, and that she very clearly saw the material and overheard what was happening. So she went and made a complaint. So you would think that that's pretty straightforward. So what happened here was that Mr. Crook was pulled into a room and he was asked to provide a written statement as to his interpretation of the events. He denied everything. He said, that never happened. I've got witnesses to back up it never happened. They suspended him and then they ended up terminating him. And then he put in an unfair dismissal claim. So Fair Work actually found in his favour, which is surprising on the face of it. And the reason is that even in cases of serious misconduct, what the employer did wrong here was they firstly failed to conduct a proper investigation. And secondly, they didn't offer him procedural fairness, so they didn't allow him a support person in the room with him. They didn't allow him time to prepare a response. They pulled him into the room and got it straight away from him. And they didn't actually really listen to what he had to say before making that outcome. He said he had witnesses to corroborate. They just dismissed that because they said they were his mates. So they reinstated him, even though they were desperately trying not to. They were ordered to reinstate him and pay back his lost wages. So I've covered a lot for managers and employees, but hopefully those non-managers in the room have learned a few things too. But for employees, what are some of the things that you might need to know? So firstly, you have the right to clarity. So you have the right to know what's expected. You have the right to know what the expectations of you in the role and to ask questions if you're unsure. You have a voice in the process. So even in a disciplinary process, it's a two-way process. You have the right to ask questions, to corroborate what they've got to say, to have a support person in the room with you if it is a formal process. And to know that both the manager and the employee have responsibilities. So they're the things that those employees in the room should be aware of. And that's it. Any questions? Over to you.
Thank you. Firstly, I just wanted to say sorry for all of the tech issues. We're learning. But I'm going to introduce Catherine now, who's going to speak on behalf of the caring group.
Thank you. Hi everyone. So I'm from this mob over here. I work as their GM of HR. And it's really lovely to be here today, and a big thank you to Emmanuel and Earl who invited me to speak. I'm hoping today is more about a bit of best practice sharing rather than me just speaking at you. So please let's make it interactive. If you've got questions, put your hand up. I'm happy to start, and answer questions as we go. So on to the next slide, please. So the first topic I sort of wanted to touch on today was industry challenges. Now, I have come from different industries. I'd never worked in this industry up until a couple of years ago, and my God, what an effort, right? Especially from a people perspective. There is so much complexity, there is so much regulation, it's just ridiculous for any employer to try and manage it effectively. But unfortunately, Fair Work says we have to. So this is what we do, so do the regulators. So the first one is competition. Now, there are lots of great employees out there, but there's a real big competition for those employees. Lots of employers, lots of organisations, everyone's going for the same employees who are really great and you want them to work for you, but there's so much competition. So not only is there competition, but retaining those people is really hard as well, especially your top talent, the people that you know are amazing. How do you retain those? And that's the question you sort of need to ask yourself. But that presents some challenges. So what do you do differently? Whether you're a manager, an employer, a business owner, what's your EVP, so your employee value proposition? What are you offering your people that is going to be a little bit different to the guy next door so they want to work for you? And if you don't employ people, but you're a sole trader and you have your own business, the same applies for clients. What's your client proposition? It works the same way as it does for employees. What are you going to do a little bit differently to make you stand out? So that's the first challenge. The second one is about regulation and compliance. Now, we all know of the regulators. You've got your NDIS Commission, you've got your Aged Care Commission, throw in Safe Work, throw in Fair Work, there's so many out there that we need to manage, and we need to ensure we meet their standards. So how do you do that? It can be really complex, and it can be very, very time consuming. If you're in a position where you have a business where you can have people in your business manage some of these requirements for you, then that's the best possible solution. So set up really good systems, really good processes. If you're not in that position, then look at where do you outsource? Who do you lean on? Who are the experts that can help you manage these areas more effectively? And then throw into regulation and compliance. Not only do your employees all need to be compliant and have about 10 different compliance certificates, but then throw in the SHADS award. Who understands that? Nobody. Even I struggle with it, and it's just a mess. So they're finally doing some sort of work on the SHADS award. They say they're reviewing it, so in a couple of years' time, hopefully we get something. But it's a very grey, it's all very grey, the whole thing. And it's very hard to understand, it's very hard to implement. As a business owner, it is just a mess for you to try and understand it. The other one is people capability and opportunity. Now, you're all from healthcare, right? You've all worked in healthcare. Hands up if when you were at uni, TAFE, wherever you did your educational programs, did they cover off people leadership with you? Did they take you through people management, team management? None of that. Business management. They taught you all the skills you need to know to do your job, but they didn't teach you the skills that you need to know to operate in the real world, right? So there's a real lack of that skill set in the healthcare industry compared to other industries. There's a real lack of knowledge around how to manage a business, how to manage people effectively, how to manage a team. So that's definitely one of the biggest challenges in the industry. The other challenge is the lack of opportunity. So we might have big organisations, some of you might run big organisations, but there's a real lack of opportunity for growth for people, so retaining them can be really difficult. So if you think of your frontline employees, for a support worker, where do they go? If they've got real, dreams of having a career and a long-term career, what does that look like for them? So thinking about, well, what can we do from a development perspective to support these people and give them opportunities? And then the last one, I don't think this will be a surprise, well-being. My goodness, do our healthcare people work hard? Like, all of you work hard, your teams must work exceptionally hard. They spend all day caring for others. It's emotionally draining, it's physically demanding. There's long days, long hours. It's a tough gig, and I take my hat off to the people who work at the front line, because it's very, very difficult. But they do it because they care. And we need to then show them that we care about them. So our people's wellbeing is so critical, especially in those situations where they deal with something confronting, difficult situations where they have a client who passes away while they're there, difficult situations where a client might try to hurt themselves in their presence. They're really, really tough situations that our people deal with. And helping them through those situations is exceptionally important. Mental health is becoming one of the biggest areas of concern, probably has been for a while in our industry. If we have a look at workers' comp cases and things like that, mental health is definitely up there as one of the biggest concerns. So what do we do a little bit differently to support our people? And what is it that we give them? What resources, tools, to help them get through those difficult situations? So they're probably the 4 biggest industry challenges. Are there any more that I've missed that you can think of off the top of your head, or do you think I nailed it? I could have missed a couple there, but they're the ones I'm definitely seeing sort of day in, day out. So I want to now touch on some real world examples, and please feel free to jump in if you've got any that you want to share. I think all of the ones that Nicole mentioned earlier I've dealt with at least once. Has anyone been to Fair Work? Has anyone had a claim at Fair Work and had to deal with them? No? Oh wow, you guys are lucky. Yeah, stay away from them as long as possible. They are no fun. And the word fair is not at all accurate. So the first one I want to touch on is the misaligned regulators. So there are lots of regulators that we have to try and manage. And they don't always align, and that is a really big problem. So in terms of fair work, safe work, totally not aligned in some of their principles. And I'll give you an example. So if you are a contractor, or if you hire a contractor, so someone who has an ABN working for you, Fair Work states that you shouldn't be training them. That is not something you should be doing with contractors. You don't train them. That's not your responsibility. However, Safe Work says you should. So who do you listen to? Yes. Yeah, so Safe Work is essentially the workplace health and safety regulator. They're national. They make up all the guidelines, rules, regulations, principles around safety at work. They do a lot of reporting, but they also come and knock on your door and hand out fines, which is no fun. So if you do have incidents, they should be reported to Safe Work, and every state has different mechanisms to do that and different requirements. So in some states, you need to let your regulator or Safe Work know about every incident. In others, it might just be the ones that are really critical. But it's important that you do some research on Safe Work. They're probably actually the scariest regulator. And that's because their fines can be upwards of $1 million for business owners if something happens in your business and an employee is hurt. And secondly, there is actually now jail time if you're found as someone who hasn't followed the right processes and procedures when it comes to workplace safety. So something to be really mindful of. So I was touching on contractors. So as I said, misaligned, understand the risks, know what your risks are in those situations, and be really clear on what risks you're willing to, I suppose, take in your business. The second one is management of people, and I think I already touched on this. Yes, there's a question?
So do we go with the scarier one, or do we stick with the stronger one? Do we train our contractors, or we don't train
Legally,
our
I can't give you
contractors?
advice right here, right now. I think it's just about weighing up the different risks in your business and what those people will be doing for you and whether they have... Every situation's different. So if you've got a contractor that's, for example, doing gardening, you can't really train them on gardening. You're not a gardener. So you can't give them any training on that, but you can make sure they've got the right training. You can make sure they've got their WHS certifications, making sure they're compliant, all those kinds of things. So there are ways around it, but it's just being mindful of how you do that and what is expected.
Can I add a layer?
Yes.
So you've got all those regulators, and then we also then as NDIS providers got to throw in whether or not the NDIS is funding things that match those things.
Correct.
As one example, sleepovers. So sleepovers require a 4-hour shift before the sleepover start, and then you're then having to manage fair work challenges, but then also have to communicate that to the NDIS who say, they just need 2 hours of one-to-one. And then, obviously we've got an inactive sleepover. I'm like, well, how does that work when it comes to fair work? So my staff has to be there. So then we have to decide financially what that looks like for rostering and so on.
Exactly, and that happens a lot, right? And in a lot of different situations. And in those situations, it would be good for you to look at, well, what options do I have? Do I do an individual flexibility agreement for some of those employees who do a lot of sleepovers at a regular pattern with the same client, which would be more financially beneficial for you as a business? So there's other options, so it's considering those options. So management of people issues, and I think Nicole nailed this when she gave some examples of some of those things that have gone to Fair Work, and I'm going to throw one at you that I've recently had to deal with. So had a casual employee which was terminated because of poor performance. Unfortunately, the manager didn't terminate them for poor performance, but just terminated them and didn't give them a reason, didn't put it in writing. There was a lot of errors made in the whole process. So this person put through an unfair dismissal claim, and their claim was obviously, I'm a casual, but I expect to be paid out a notice period. And I didn't get paid out a notice period, and we were like, well, hold on, you're not really entitled to a notice period. Fair Work says it right here, read that. But Fair Work is really, really grey. So that's what it's hard to understand, but it's not so black and white. So what Fair Work will say is, well, you didn't manage it effectively. It was a poor termination process. You didn't follow the guidelines. So, yeah, you're paying them a notice period, essentially, or you're reinstating them. And that happens, and it's happened. So something to be mindful of. Having those right people practices in place is really critical. So following those processes that Nicole touched on, being fair, being reasonable, documentation, having the right conversations, all very essential as part of the process. Earl, you had your hand up?
Yeah, just backtracking on safe work. I guess everyone here, most people here, whether they're care providers, allied health or similar, we're sending staff into houses, and obviously we all know about home risk assessments, but we're also dealing with people that might have challenges managing their homes and safety. So does that workplace extends to our staff going into people's homes, correct? So does it mean we have to really go hard on making sure that workplace is safe, but that's not always entirely possible?
That's exactly right, and that's a really good point. So the workplace is that employee, wherever that employee is. So if that's the client's home, then that's their workplace. We've had an example of that where an employee slipped on a cracked tile at an employer's home, at a client's home, and we were liable for that. That was, that's where we sent them. We didn't make sure it was safe. So those risk assessments, those checklists before you start with a client, doing those at-home checklists are really critical. We've also developed some checklists at the caring group. They're lone worker checklists. Our employees work alone most of the time. A whole other set of risks come with that. So they're not in an office environment with 10 other people. They're in a workplace on their own. So what are the risks associated with being on your own in a workplace? There are many. And so thinking about that and putting processes in place around that are really important as well. On to clear accountability. So, yes. Oh, sorry. Yes.
Sorry, just again back to safety.
Yes.
It's a bit of a curly one, and I'm sure a lot of us with core supports would agree, is contractors or casual workers that are working for, say, 4 to 5 different providers and taking on those casual shifts. What about those guys? They're coming in, they're tired, and where do we set boundaries there? They have an incident in our home or our workplace, but it's because they've been on shift with somebody else all night and haven't told us. So
yeah, that's a really
any
good
tips
question.
on that one?
Yeah, look, we have the same issues. We always ask employees if they work for other providers when we're recruiting, and they usually tell us, yes or no. It's very hard to monitor, but we do try our best to do that. If there is a workplace safety issue and an employee has an injury or a contractor has an injury and it was on your shift, you're still liable regardless. Yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't matter if they've worked 10 hours beforehand with another person, there's still liability there. Yes, at the back? Oh, no, that was just my timer. Okay, clear accountability. So I cannot stress enough the importance of clear accountability with employees. And we are all guilty of it, not doing a proper onboarding process. Now, we've all done it. I've done it. Many of you have probably done it. We get busy. We run out of time. We needed that person to start yesterday. So we don't always follow the right processes and procedures when it comes to onboarding employees. And that means a proper job description, proper responsibilities, giving them the right tools to do their job, setting expectations on what you require in their position. It can be time consuming, but it's definitely essential. And even more so essential if you have a Fair Work claim or a work cover claim. They're going to ask you where was their onboarding, where's their job description, when did you go. They're all the documents they're going to ask for straight up. That's where we become unstuck. So those processes are really essential. Employee expectations. So I'm finding, how many young people are in the room? I don't want to... Young's young, under 25. Can I say, okay, it's a generalisation. Most young people are great, but I am finding that we are getting a lot of employees thinking they're more entitled to things than they are. So, and I talk about this from the Fair Work perspective. So there'll be casual employees, they are terminated or put on hold because we don't have a client or whatever it may be. They go to Fair Work with an unfair dismissal claim and they haven't been paid out notice. And it's, as I said before, well, you know, you're not eligible for notice. But unfortunately, as Fair Work is very grey, they may be eligible for notice. And let me tell you why. Because what Fair Work will do is they will review that employee's hours, their consistency of their work, their patterns. And if that employee has worked Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for the same shift with the same client for the last 6 months, Fair Work is going to say, hey, they're a permanent employee. So you're liable to either give them their job back, pay them a notice period, or whatever it may be. So that's where it's not always so clear cut. And you might think you're following the guidelines, but unfortunately when you go to Fair Work, their guidelines are whatever they want them to be that day. So something to be mindful of. And then the last one, mental health. I think I spoke about this earlier, how important it is. If I touch on really briefly safe work and mental health, the amount of psychosocial claims Safe Work is receiving and workers' compensation companies are receiving is really skyrocketing. Part of that reason is because, yes, people are struggling with mental health due to work-related reasons. The other reason is because it is very easy to make a psychosocial claim. If any of you have ever dealt with that, I don't know if anyone's had a workers' comp claim for a mental health injury or bullying or whatever it may be. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for employees getting the care that they need, and if that's a work cover claim, then so be it, if it's a genuine injury. But we have had many examples, and I've got, I think, 3 or 4 at the moment that we're disputing, where these employees have either been terminated for misconduct, so they're retaliating by putting through a psychological claim. There's no evidence of that behaviour or issues with them in the past. They've never raised it with management, and it gets approved. It's very hard to not prove a psychological claim. Like, how do you tell someone they don't have one? And they go to doctors who may not always do the right thing, and these claims get approved. And then you're potentially paying someone for months, maybe years, for a psychological claim that they don't really have. So just something to be really mindful of. What processes are you putting into place? What conversations are you having to protect yourselves from that perspective? Now, don't get me wrong, because the insurers have cottoned on finally and said, why are our claims going through the roof for mental health? And they've worked out that, yeah, some of these claims are a bit dodgy. So they figured out that they need a better process, and they're reviewing that. I don't know what that looks like, but hopefully there'll be more stringent rules around those claims in the future.
I guess it'd be particularly difficult in our industry, where we're already talking about an industry where you're caring for people in vulnerable situations, high-risk situations, and some of the stuff that we deal with, not the general population, for lack of a better word, may not necessarily have to be exposed to. When you're going into someone's house and maybe they've got behaviours of concern you're dealing with all the time, so it's a real,
And support workers, it's typically not a professional job, is it? So people, I guess it is professional, but they're not recognised by the NDIS and by their wages as professional. And I think that's part of it. The thing, the NDIS needs to recognise that this should be a profession, and if it's recognised in terms of pay, etc., then we can build the quality up, support people who are working in the sector better as well, to work with challenging, vulnerable clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So my last topic today is just around creating change and how you do that. So just some ideas for you all to take back and work through. The first one is good people processes. Starts with onboarding, get it right, give your people job descriptions that are clear, tell them what time they start work and what time they finish, tell them how many hours a day they're meant to be working, all those kinds of things that they can come back and say, I didn't know. And then check in with them regularly. So it doesn't have to be every week, every month. Every month for 5 minutes would be nice. But as a support worker, we know they're out in the field, they're not in the office, it's hard to catch them. But regular check-ins are important. And then The other thing I would do around good people processes is document. Can't stress it enough. It's where you'll become unstuck if you need to prove or disprove something. So a really important factor. Leadership and NQ, as I touched on before, not an area that health professionals always get development and training in. So what can we do differently here? What development or coaching or guiding can you give your people in this area? And when I talk leadership, I talk things like those soft skills. So, communication, what you say, how you say it. When I talk EQ, I talk emotional intelligence, empathy, self-awareness. How many people don't have any of that? So there's a lot of ways to understand yourselves better, but then also help your people understand themselves better. Feedback is a great tool. There are lots of online assessments people can send out to peers and managers to get feedback. There's one called a DISC profile, and it gives them real-time feedback on and helps them become a bit more self-aware so they can make improvements. And then when it comes to emotional intelligence, are we empathetic? Our people do tough jobs. You guys all do tough jobs. Are we getting the right support? And then if you don't feel like you have the right leadership skills, if you think you can be a better manager or people in your teams can be better managers, then look at that development. What development do they need? And it doesn't have to be expensive, that you could find them a really great mentor that could coach them on a certain area, which, it's free. Find them a mentor that that could work with them. Free online courses are really great. There's lots of development opportunities outside of just, doing a uni degree or a TAFE course or a $5,000 training program. There's lots of ways that you can do that.
Can I just ask a question to you guys? Does anyone want to share any, well, this is a great slide to throw some ideas out there for everyone, because that's why we're all together, right? Any ideas on how you guys have done something maybe to create that change in your organisation, or something that you guys are proud of that you're doing to create that holistic environment? Does anyone want to go for it?
Rewarding employees without them expecting it.
Great. The surprise on their face when you give them something, it could be something really small, but even just saying thank you when that recognition is it's something little, but it means so much to them. Thank you.
I have a podcast recommendation called This Is Work. It's got a lot of great resources both for employees but managers as well, and how to lead teams, lots of practical tips that you can take away. It's been really, really insightful.
Oh, excellent. This Is Work. Is that what it's called?
Yeah,
okay,
great.
Fantastic. Thank you. Yes.
So we'll often get feedback from support workers or our managers that they're doing a great job, and just making sure that we're passing on that feedback to them. So now we actually go out and ask for feedback.
Great.
And they just, as we all do, love good feedback and things to improve upon as well. So it's a really great business process too.
Yeah, that's fantastic, asking for feedback. I think that means as much as recognition for people, because it means that you're actually doing something about it, and that their opinion is important. Yeah.
Hi. I'm from Melbourne. We've created a thing called the SIL Circle, where 13 peers in different organisations collaborate. It's a non-monetised movement. It's a values-led, ethical-led movement where we do it on top of our jobs every day, where we come together on business development in the organisation. So it can be a fairly isolated and lonely role. So all of us come together. We have a leadership team. We meet, we share best practices. We don't referral gate, we refer on. We can't accept everything. So from my perspective, being an employee in an organisation where I am siloed with my role, that's how I get who I lean into are my industry peers.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
It's called the SIL Circle. So look out.
I love it.
It might come up to New South Wales.
Oh, bring it up here. I'll join. Look, that sounds great, because I think it's great from a development and learning and growth, but it's also great because you have people to lean on that know what you're going through day in, day out, right? And it helps having those people when you work in a very siloed role, people to talk to, people to vent to. It's critical. Yeah. Thank you. That's great. We've got another example down the back.
I need to press anything. I think for all of us in this industry, and we talk about it a lot in our companies, we can't pour from an empty cup, and it's so essential that all of us in the industry ensure that our well-being is as best it can be, because otherwise the service that you're going to deliver is not going to be of a standard that our participants are, deserving of. So little things that can be weekly check-ins with your team and actually checking in with them first. Hey, how are you? How are you going this? How are you feeling? And leading from the top in the sense that if someone's not feeling great, giving them permission to say, hey, take the rest of the day off, go home, rest, recover, I'll check in with you in the morning, and almost encouraging that, promoting their well-being on top of just keep going. I think just shifting that perspective is key.
Yeah, I love that. That's really great. And I'm glad that you mentioned that. I will come to you in a sec. Your own well-being, and I was going to touch on that when I talked about well-being, because you do spend a lot of time caring for others, and so do your people, but where do you care for yourself? Where do you take half an hour out to go to the gym or read a book? And I know these are they're little things, but it's hard to put in the time when you're so busy and you are spending most of your time on other people, and then you have families, some have kids, whatever it is, and we always come last. Find half an hour a day, make it happen, you can, and it'll make the biggest difference to your mental health, and promote that your people do the same thing. I think that's important. There's another question?
No, I was just going to add to that.
Yes.
Earlier you spoke about in this health industry, we don't get the training to do people management. And so I think self-investment is really important, especially the higher up you go, the lonelier it gets. So the two things that we do is, one, we provide monthly mentoring to all of our head of departments so that they understand how to coach, train, and support their team better. And then the exec team, we all attend a monthly book club where we actually build our skills and we learn some tools and tips, and then we come back and practice and evaluate. And we do that on a regular basis.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. I love that you've implemented that. Little things, but they make such a big difference, right?
Yeah. Huge difference and great feedback.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the last thing I wanted to touch on well-being is, well-being can be expensive. You can't sit there and pay for all of your people to attend a yoga retreat every quarter. Like, let's be realistic, that's not going to happen. But you can potentially buy some massage vouchers. $50 for a half an hour massage for 5 people a month, or whatever it may be. And it shows people you care. It gives them their time out, helps them feel a little bit better about themselves and about the work they do. And all of this is one big circle, right? So we were talking at the beginning, and this is where I want to go back to the challenge of finding and retaining good people. If we're not doing some of this stuff, then there's no way you'll be able to do that. So it all works together. If you take care of your people, they become really loyal, look after their well-being, they'll stay with you long term and make your life easier. So it all flows and works really well together. Are there any other questions, thoughts, any best practice anyone wants to share with the group of things that they're doing that's amazing? Yes?
We will have a Wednesday wellbeing meeting with our support coordinators.
Yeah, love that.
Just in the afternoon, finish the day. Any work talk is banned.
Yes.
We want to, and I'm sure if there's any sites who would appreciate it, the different part of our brain switch off from work. We might do a quiz, we have a bit of round robin as to who's running it, and we might just do a quiz, do an online game, share something, and also in our meetings we make sure that we share wins and
fantastic.
elevate us for the next week.
Oh, I love that. That's great. Thank you. Great ideas. All right. Well, if anyone has any questions, I'll still be here for a little while. And if you've got any more things that you want to add, you're welcome to. Was there... No? I'm just handing over. Is that what they're telling me?
Sign language. Thank you.
Okay, so we did go... Sorry, the lights are now back on. Does everyone need a few minutes? So thank you. Again, amazing. A big thank you to Nicole and Catherine for their information. Does anyone have anything else that they wanted to potentially ask before we wrap up this section? Any questions or any particular things that they wanted to bring up with anyone? I think, is there someone over there?
I just wanted to share like, I think one example regarding the HR management. So I think this is one of the, very terrible experience that I've gone through myself recently in terms of HR management and managing people. Like, I was associated with a company, I'm talking about a big size company with a volume of about 200, 300 participants, and I was associated with this company. And back in, I think, towards the beginning of this year, I lost my dad in a car accident here in Sydney, and for that reason, I had to be away from work for a few months. And then, obviously, I needed some time, getting back to work. And when I told my HR manager that I need some time off, and in the meantime, I was consulting with my psychologist and everything, and other supports, and I was also supporting other my family members aftermath of the crisis. And the next minute, like, I did have the discussion, send the email with all the explanation, and to my surprise, I received an email from the HR manager that my contract is dismissed. And that was like, really, is that how you know? So what I'm sharing this is because all the things that we're talking about today is, so the gist is try to understand employee when and support them when they need the most. So
I think Catherine wants to say something, but
No, I didn't really, but I just wanted to be able to see the person. But I can say something if you want me to.
yeah, I just got a quick thing for myself. I mean, look, I'm not a HR expert necessarily, but I think as a person who's run a team in this space for some time, I think it's incredibly important to actually know your staff. I mean, it doesn't really matter what strategy you use. Like, you can be creative. You can do different things depending on what's happening for them. You can do different things depending on the situation that's happening. There's a similar situation happening with one of my team members at the moment, but it's about being flexible, creative. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, we work with people who work with people. In some cases, we work with people who work with people who work with people. You can keep going. But in order for us to create efficient, high-performing, sustainable environments, you can't be so rigid. It's impossible. But yeah.
It's an effort with these microphones today. No, I was just going to say, look, I'm really sorry you went through that. I think everybody hearing that would sit here and go, wow, like, who would do that to someone? I think that's absolutely really, really cruel. And I would hope that everybody in this room, if you do own a business, you would never do that to an employee. There's so many ways you can manage a situation like that, and dismissing an employee after something like that is not the right approach. Yeah.
To add to that, and the reason I was given was that they have to find all the staff to cover the shift for me.
Yep.
And I know until today they haven't found another staff, because the client that I used to look after has got he needs a very complex, because he's got a life-threatening condition, and
Yes.
the staff needs to have a very particular high clinical skills, and
Yep.
for that reason they haven't been able to replace this staff yet. I know that fact. I knew that from before. And later on I had an opportunity to talk to the owner, and whenever I had to return all the belongings and stuff, and she said, look, she apologized to me, to be fair, and she said, I'm so sorry that has happened to you, I didn't know, and would you like to come to work? And I said,
Oh, good,
thank you,
okay.
but they acknowledge it. But I mean, how can that they do,
I don't know. I think you've got to be pretty heartless to do something like that.
I mean,
yeah. And look, there's always a way around a situation. So as you were saying, they needed to replace you. Yeah, they could hire someone on a contract for a few months. Like, there's always options. Be creative.
Amazing. Is there any other comments or questions anyone wants to raise before I finish up and you can eat some amazing food? Thanks, Zoe. There's one more, I think.
Thank you. Actually, I had two questions for the HR. Sorry, I'm very bad with names. One, what's the role for a support person during any investigations? Like, a support person comes with the employee. What's the role for the support person?
So what's the role of a support person in investigation processes? So with investigations, it's more for your emotional support. However, if it's a union representative, they can actually speak on your behalf.
Okay, thank you so much. Another one is, does the process remains the same for a notice to attend and seek to understand From
Can
a
you say
HR,
that again, sorry?
From a HR perspective, does the process remains the same for a notice to attend letter and seek to understand letter?
Seek to understand.
Yeah, so they're both essentially the same thing. So one is you're sending them a letter where you want to get more information, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the notice period should be about the same. You should be giving 24 to 48 hours notice when you're sending out a letter like that. For a meeting, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, definitely, yes.
Yep.
So, because when you send a letter for notice to attend, it really means that, yes, you need to answer some difficult questions
correct.
there. But if it's a seek to understand, I see it a bit differently, and it's not as compatible to notice to attend. So that's what I wanted to know. As an employee, and for my own knowledge, does the process remains the same?
The process is the same regardless. If you're asking an employee to answer questions in regards to performance or behaviour, I think it's important up front to be honest about the reason for that in the letter, and give them the reasoning behind that. If it's a seek to understand, it would be more around, we would like your input on this. So it's just the terminology.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
Hi, if someone is on ABN and they're working for like more than 1 year and same home, same group home, same shift, they still consider as a permanent employee?
If they're on an ABN, they're a contractor. So it's a
Yeah.
different contract type and different regulations around that. So they're not a permanent employee.
Yeah.
Contractors have different rules and regulations. You can pretty much terminate most contractor agreements without much notice. It depends on the contract itself that you've put together.
Okay.
In some cases, yes. It depends on, there are so many factors, so it's very hard to give a generic answer to this because it depends on the contractor, whether they're working for other people, if they're working regular hours for you, consistent shifts. There are so many different elements that you need to look at. If a contractor is working only for you, Fair Work will deem them as an employee. So the same regulations will apply, yes. And so will Safe Work. Yes, they do an ATO test, you're right. Yeah.
Okay, so before I hand over to Ivania to wrap it up, thank you. I just wanted to mention that all of the people at the back there, they actually have special offers for you guys. So if you want to know more, please go and speak to them. So there's some that are offering different bits and pieces depending on their side. So please go and have a chat with them. They're offering for you guys for being part of the network. But I'll just hand over to Ivania to finish up and then we can get onto the food.
Right, we have opened up our Building Bridges LinkedIn page, so please follow our page and we'll have information from time to time and promotional videos. And if you haven't reserved a ticket on Eventbrite today, please do, because next month we won't be doing the calendar invite, so everyone will be reserving the ticket on Eventbrite. And yeah, thanks everyone for coming today. Building Bridges is about engaging, knowledge sharing, and helping you to navigate the complexities of NDIS. Thank you, everyone. All right, feel free to have a walk around and get some food. I'll see you next month, last Thursday of each month.